very happy new year to our viewers. Welcome to Daily News Simplified, an answer to what, why, and how of newspaper reading. Today we are going to discuss Hindu newspaper dated 2nd January 2018. So let's begin. On page number 1, the news reads, US foolishly gave money to Pakistan. The same news appeared as a continuation on page number 12. So let's see this news with respect to Donald Trump's view on Pakistan and how it is impactful for India. As we see this news in a continuation on page number 12, which reads, US drastically cut aid to Pakistan in the Obama years. Let's see what Donald Trump has said. Donald Trump has threatened to stop financial aid to Pakistan and has further said that US has foolishly given $33 billion to Pakistan without getting anything in return. And in spite of that, they have got only deceit and lies in the last 15 years. The US has also accused Pakistan of giving safe havens to the terrorists. Now this threat to Pakistan should be seen in two perspectives. First of all, in the perspective of India, how this particular threat given by US to Pakistan impacts India and how Pakistan will slowly move towards other countries if it stopped receiving aid or financial aid from the United States. So let's see these two perspectives. Now, the more US hardens its stance on Pakistan, the better it becomes for India. And India can utilize these positions both diplomatically to better its relations with United States on various fronts, including military strategies, military aid, as well as defense and trade, and in terms of security or security of the region. Secondly, more US hardened its stance on Pakistan, it will start moving towards other countries like China or Russia. Now, in this respect, it becomes important for India to balance its diplomatic and international interest. We all know that Pakistan over the years has slowly moved towards China, and this can also be seen through the cut in financial aid given by the United States to Pakistan. Let's see an overview of the aid given to Pakistan by United States over the period of years. Now, as we can see, from the year 2014 to 2017, US has drastically cut financial aid to Pakistan, starting from $2.117 billion to merely $526 million. Over the period of years, there has been a huge trust deficit with Pakistan, and we all know that Donald Trump always favors a policy where it sees some interest for the United States. So in the eyes of the President Donald Trump, all these monies are nothing but a mere waste. So United States has asked Pakistan to show some concrete steps so that they can continue to get these financial aids. The United States has also reduced coalition support fund. US maintains its military and air base in various of its allies countries. So it gives certain amount of fund for reimbursement for logistics and operational support. So we see that even this coalition support fund or CSF has been reduced. United States in particular has asked the Pakistan to act against the Haqqani network so that this idea of trust deficit lessens between United States and Pakistan. This coalition support fund is still pending for the year 2017 as US asks for specific action against terrorist networks. So we see this topic becomes important because in all this, India comes into picture. Because recently on policy on Afghanistan, US has clearly stated that India is partner and has effectively censured Pakistan. Now this topic becomes important for UPSC from international relations perspective as we see the relation between United States and Pakistan, Afghanistan and India comes into picture. Also, we must not forget that Pakistan has a close relation with China And similarly, China and Russia maintain cordial relationship. And recently we have seen that Pakistan and Russia also have started maintaining very cordial relationship. So in all this, it becomes important to understand this whole scenario through Indian perspective for our international relations point of view. Now, simple question can be asked in mains: how toughening of stand of United States on Pakistan will impact India's relationship with China, Russia, or even United States. These type of questions can be expected in the IR section. Now let's move on to the next news. Now we move to page number 2. Here the news reads: IPFT team to meet Raj Nath over separate state demand. Although this is a very political news, but let us understand this concept of separate state demand by this IPFT or Indian People's Front of Tripura. So demand is to convert certain area of Tripura into a new state which they have named as Tripura land. And their vision is to convert this Tripura Tribal Areas Autonomous District Council, also known as TTAADC, into a separate state of Tripura land. 1/3 of the Tripura is a tribal area, and this TTAADC comprises of 3/4 of the geographical location of the state of Tripura. Thus, they have demanded a separate state for themselves. The important thing to be understand here is that this district council or autonomous district council, it comes within the purview of 6th schedule. A simple preliminary question can be asked that this district council or regional council, they comprise under which of the following schedule? So the answer would be 6th schedule, and under the 5th schedule we have Tribes Advisory Council. So in this news, this becomes important from a prelims point of view. Also about the state of Tripura, it is surrounded on 3 sides by Bangladesh and on 2 sides by Indian states of Mizoram and Assam. So another preliminary question can be asked in this area pertaining to the state of Tripura, as it has been in news because of a separate state demand. So a basic preliminary question can be asked that what are the 2 states which borders Tripura? So answer would be Mizoram and Assam. Or in other way, they can also ask you which of the following states do not border Tripura. So Manipur do not border Tripura, or in other way, apart from Assam and Mizoram, no other Indian states of the northeastern region border Tripura, and Tripura is surrounded by Bangladesh on 3 sides, as we can see in this map. All these informations become important from a prelims point of view. So let's move on to the next news. Now we move to page number 8 on the editorial section. Here the news reads the money trail. Now this news is with respect to Bitcoins. Let's see. In this news, the Ministry of Finance has warned the potential investors to invest in Bitcoins, as Bitcoins since 2013 has not been approved by the Reserve Bank of India. And Reserve Bank of India, in the very year 2013, when Bitcoin saw a surge initially, issued a warning against investment in Bitcoins. Now we know that the price of Bitcoins has fluctuated very widely, and one of the reasons for its fluctuation has been its speculation in the market, and another, a sudden large number of entry of potential investors, because they see investment in Bitcoins as a very easy way to make huge profits. So all these criteria have resulted in the fluctuation of the price of Bitcoins. Governments around the world is very much varied of investments in Bitcoins, and it also includes India. Let us understand the reasons why all the governments, including India, is varied in terms of investment in Bitcoins. No one is sure about the technology through which it works. Hence, it becomes very difficult to regulate such technology. Verification of investment in Bitcoins, it's still very much in doubt, not only by India but also by various countries, as legally and technically it has yet not been approved by any of the financial institutions of the world. Now we are seeing a huge surge in investment in Bitcoins because potential investors think that this is a very easy way to make huge profits, thereby tremendously increasing the price of bitcoins. Now, because of this increased price, other investors who do not have so much of money are lured into investing in other speculative and non-regulative cryptocurrencies, as these investments are not at all secure or very insecure. Thus, the government around the world is very much worried because of people or its citizens are investing in such insecure investments which is not secured or regulated by their monetary or financial institution. There is still a lingering doubt of utilization of money earned through cryptocurrencies in illegal activities, including that of trafficking, drugs, or even using such money as black money or in the black money market. Thus, use of cryptocurrencies in the financial sector becomes very much doubtful by countries around the world. Every currency, as we know, is known for two things, that is, medium of exchange and store of value. But use of cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin as a medium of exchange as well as store of value is still very much in doubt. The use and influence of cryptocurrencies like Bitcoins and other cryptocurrencies are closely watched by various countries because of its adverse impact on financial system as well as security implications. In India, both SEBI as well as RBI is very much in doubt with respect to investments in bitcoins or other cryptocurrencies. Therefore, an interministerial panel has been formed to look into the issue of cryptocurrency and its regulation in India. Thus, this news becomes important in the economy section because of the growing influence of bitcoins, as we see this issue almost on a daily basis in the news. Thus, a simple question can be asked about or with respect to regulation of cryptocurrencies, or why governments around the world, including India, are doubtful with respect to investors investing in bitcoins, or what are the hazards to invest in bitcoins, as these cryptocurrencies are very much unregulated and no one knows exactly their source. Thus, its regulation becomes an important topic with respect to UPSC. Let's move on to the next news. Now we move on to the next news. On the same page, it reads the secular condition. In this article, there is a debate regarding the word secular as inserted in the Indian Constitution or in the preamble to the Indian Constitution through 42nd Amendment. The debate which has started is whether the word secular should be or should remain within the Constitution, because when the Constitution was adopted in the year 1949 on 26 November, then the word secular was not there in the preamble to the Indian Constitution. The word secular was added by the 42nd Amendment. This 42nd Amendment added the word secular, socialist, as well as another word integrity to the preamble of the Indian Constitution. This can be a very healthy question with respect to preliminary examination. Now let us understand why the Constituent Assembly did not adopt the word secular in the Constitution of India. According to the constitution makers, every democracy has certain inbuilt concepts which includes right to equality, right to freedom of speech and expression, and right to freedom of religion and conscience. Thus, with these three basic human rights, the Constituent Assembly did not find it worthy enough to include the word secular, as it was very much ingrained within the philosophy of the Constitution. In spite of the fact the word secular was not there till the 42nd Amendment, India still remained to be a very secular country. Thus, this debate with respect to the word secular, or whether the word secular should be there in the Constitution or should not be there in the Constitution, does not hold much ground. Let us understand this from the perspective of Constitution as well as rule of law. Under the Indian Constitution, Article 14 guarantees right to equality. Article 19 guarantees right to freedom of speech and expression. Article 21 guarantees right to life and personal liberty. and Article 25 guarantees freedom to practice and propagate any religion. And not to forget Article 15, which mentions prohibition of discrimination on grounds of religion, race, caste, sex, or place of birth. Thus, all these articles put together in a way makes our constitution, in a way makes our government to follow rule of law, and law of the land is that of the constitution. Thus, even though the word secular is there or is not there, it will not eliminate certain basic human rights as has been guaranteed under part 3 or under fundamental rights of the Indian Constitution. And any law, if made by the government, violates any of the fundamental rights, then it stands the scrutiny of judicial review and may be declared against the Constitution or unconstitutional if it violates any of the basic feature of the Indian Constitution. In this regard, let us also remember the case of Kesavanand Bharati, where the concept of basic structure of the Indian Constitution was declared. And according to the concept of basic structure, certain basic structure which includes secularism cannot be amended by the government. And if government brings any such amendment which affects or destroys basic structure, then such amendment shall be declared unconstitutional. So this topic becomes very important with respect to polity section of UPSC, as concepts of secularism can be asked in a mains question, or they can simply ask whether India before 42nd amendment was a secular government or not, or how does the word secular after the 42nd amendment impacted Indian citizens. In prelims, 42nd amendment becomes important. So this topic becomes very important from exam point of view. So in this respect, let us again revise the basic fundamental rights as guaranteed under part 3 of the Indian Constitution. It guarantees right to equality, right to freedom, right against exploitation, right to freedom of religion, cultural and educational rights, and right to constitutional remedies. And all these rights are always subject to the concept of judicial review by high courts as well as Supreme Court. Thus, any law, if made within India, if it defies or is against the principle of constitution or any of the provisions of the constitution, it will not stand the scrutiny of judicial review, or it will be declared as unconstitutional. Thus, this topic becomes very important. Now let's move on to the next news. Now we move on to page number 9. Here the news reads, Seize the Asian Century. Now this news talks about three things. Basically, old economic order, also known as Washington Census, led by the advanced economies like US, UK, France, etc. Second is post 2008 economic crisis, how the world changed after the economic crisis of 2008. And last, emerging of the new international economic order. Now we see, as per this old economic order or the Washington Census, these advanced economies were the initial champions of globalization and free trade, ably led by the United States of America, followed with other advanced economies like UK, France, Germany, etc. This economic order was opposed by the developing nations, including India, China, Brazil, etc. Now this old economic order was opposed by these developing nations, but eventually even they embraced this concept of globalization as it helped in developing of their economy. But we saw a sudden U-turn by these advanced economies after 2008 economic crisis, and they turned inwards, as we saw curbs on immigration by various advanced economies, as they feared that people from the developing nation may take jobs of those in their country. Another example which we saw of countries turning inward was Brexit. Then there were trade protectionist measures, and we saw some of these countries withdrawing from some of the multilateral trade agreements. Thus, post 2008, we saw these champions of globalization and free trade turning inwards. However, in this respect, there is a new international economic order coming up by the developing economies. Now, post 2008, we have seen development of this new international economic order, which is led by developing nations, especially India and China. These developing nations in their own country have led to fastest reduction in poverty in human history. They have also seen increase in literacy in their own backyard, which has actually helped them to grow at a much faster rate. These developing economies are leading globalization process through introduction of concepts like BRICS Bank, infrastructure projects, entering into various trade agreements such as RCEP or Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. In spite of such high rate of growth as well as literacy in these developing economies, the problem remains that they are still dependent on old economies to maintain high economic growth. In this respect, India, China, along with other like-minded countries who are open to the idea of free trade and globalization should come together, including East Asian countries as well as countries in the Pacific region, also including certain advanced countries like Australia as well as Japan. Thus, for this Asian century to become a reality, these nations must look beyond their petty feuds towards possibilities of growth and development through integration of their economies. Thus, this topic becomes important both from IR perspective as well as from the perspective of economy. A simple question can be asked in this with respect to the changing world order from Washington Consensus to this new international economic order, or how developing nations have taken the center stage with respect to globalization as well as integration of the economies, and how those advanced economies of the past have turned inwards, or that those advanced countries are now going backwards against their very idea of globalization or integration of their economies. Thus, this topic becomes important from UPSC point of view. Let's move on to the next news. Now we move to page number 13. Here, the news reads, steel, cement lead core sector growth to a 13-month high. So let's see this news with respect to these 8 core sectors or 8 core industries. So these 8 core industries, which comprises of 40.27% of the weight of IIP or Index of Industrial Production. This Index of Industrial Production basically gives us an idea about the growth of these core sector industries. Now, what are these core sector industries? These are coal, crude oil, natural gas, refinery products, fertilizers, steel, cement and electricity. Now, here we see that natural gas grew at 2.4%, whereas refinery products grew at 8.2%. But these two sectors, mainly that is cement and steel, grew at 16.6 and 17.3% respectively. This important thing to note here is not about these numbers or these specific percentages, but about what are the 8 core industries, because questions have been asked in UPSC preliminary examinations that what are the core industries. Now this percentage have been provided for the month of November 2017, and this growth as is shown is as compared to November 2016. So when we say that coal declined at 0.2%, it means that it declined from November 2016 by 0.2% in November 2017. Thus, this topic becomes important from prelims point of view with respect to 8 core industries. This is also important because of the recent slowdown in growth. We see a sudden rise in steel and cement sectors, and we know that this sector relates to infrastructure. Hence, we can say in India there was some growth in infrastructure sector related to steel and cement, and we also see a increase in electricity sector. Thus, this topic becomes important with respect to the 8 core industries. With this, we come to an end to today's newspaper. Let's move on to the question for the day.